So I first started living in Guatemala almost every winter after 2006. And I remember 2006 because that's when 10,000 Days by Tool came out. I was like, I'm trying to remember things in Tool albums, basically. And when I was living in Guatemala, I got really used to this. No, see, in Guatemala, it's much more indigenous. You have like a very real relationship with an indigenous culture. People that speak Mayan, they're wearing traditional Mayan clothing. There's chickens running around. There's like 2-year-old children hanging off the tops of buildings with no parents around. It's crazy. It's like the freedom of a rural country vibe, basically. So when I got older and I started to want to like look at owning somewhere, the rule of law is quite a bit higher in Costa Rica. So I ended up in Costa Rica because there's a big music festival here, or there is when there's not a pandemic, called Envision. So every year I knew that this particular area was bringing in like-minded people who like to dance around in the jungle and listen to weird, loud music. And I was like, okay, great. So this is a place where the letter of law is high enough where I can own property. Because in Costa Rica versus Guatemala, if you buy something in Guatemala, you may not actually own it. It's hard to say. Whereas here, we have a local visible registry. Like I can go onto the internet and I can look up who owns what property just by the titles and the deeds, etc.
Literally a ledger.
Yeah, it's an open registry of property here, and so Costa Rica's done a really good job of that. Like a lot of other Central American countries haven't. You have a few that are quite high up there, like Venezuela, Argentina they had a very high level of that before their government started to disintegrate. Uruguay has been making some great strides. So I basically ended up in Central America, Costa Rica specifically, because there's a music festival that has people like Alex Gray that show up, and because it was one of the easiest places where there was still law. Like, in the decentralized community, we talk about like the openness of everything. But if you really want a kind of like some type of stability, you're still looking for a letter of law that works effectively. Just going into total anarchy is no fun. Like there was a moment during the pandemic where people started protesting here, and I saw videos of people throwing Molotov cocktails at police. I was like, this is getting close to the breaking point for my stay here. But so it was kind of a mixture of things. The nature of Costa Rica is really nice too. It's one of the most biodiverse parts on the planet, aside from the Amazonian jungle, effectively. So it was like I can grow ayahuasca here. I got some San Pedro plants growing. That was extremely appealing to me as well. So now that I own property, Bradley, now that I'm like kind of into it, I'm not sure I would suggest it. Like I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like there's times that I know I feel really good. Like the fact that there's like 80 pineapples that I've planted over the last 6 years. And every time I come back, I'm just eating pineapples that I've planted, or the turmeric tea or the lemongrass. That all of this stuff that you get from like having a relationship with the land was really valuable to me. But I'm not sure it's worth it. It may be that you and I are growing up in a culture that's much more nomadic in general, but it feels very burdensome to some degree to own stuff at all. Like I love one of the main reasons I actually own properties because my instruments needed a house, Bradley. That's it. If I didn't play music, I'm not sure I ever would have built a house.